Hey everybody, this is Christopher Moonlight, host of The Practical People and director of The Quantum Terror. And I find myself a few days from Halloween without a costume, so I thought, what am I going to be? Well, one of my favorite movies of all time is Aliens, and I particularly love the facehugger chestburster scenes. I think they're really cool. I love the Stan Winston School of Character Arts video on how they made the chestburster. So I'm going to make a chestburster for my Halloween costume. It's based on a tentacle mechanism that I make at home for some of my projects. I'm just going to modify it a little bit to create a chestburster. And you're just going to need a few kind of household type items for it. So you're going to need a t-shirt. This is something I got from Walmart, very cheap. I'm not afraid to cut it up. Cardboard and a black trash bag. Very important item is springs. You're going to need a few springs. This particular size comes out of soap pump bottles. I also have this spring here. It's kind of got a couple of loops on it. You can kind of pull it back and forth like that. I think I got this one out of a broken CD player. I have a pin for poking holes in things. I have this tubing. It's just flexible tubing I got from Lowe's. String for tying stuff down to your trunk or whatever. Ping pong ball. Some pliers with some wire snips in them. Fishing line. This is 12-pound fishing line. It's got some strength to it. Wire. Some gaff tape. I have some hot glue gun. JB Quick, this is a 2-part bonding agent. It's kind of like an epoxy, but not quite. Foam core. So we're going to take these items and we're going to make our chestburster. So let's get started. And the first thing you want to do is to get the body shapes for the chestburster. So I would normally do this with a razor, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. Plus I don't have a proper cutting surface. But the body, we want it to be roughly the size of this ping pong ball, because this is what we're going to be using for the head. So I would say we'll get some squares or rectangles, sort of square shapes about that size. And I think we need about 8 of them. Cut them into semicircular shapes. I've started with rectangles and I'm just gonna do a rough. It doesn't have to be a great circle or anything. I mean, about the size of this ping pong ball here. It doesn't have to be precise, but I'm trying to create a body. These segments are going to make up the body, and this ping pong ball is going to become the head. I'm going to take some of these rectangle bits, and I'm going to cut small pieces off. So they don't have to be much, but I'll show you what we're going to do with these. With some hot glue. And I will probably burn myself, but I'm going to bridge that. I don't know if you can hear Charlie Brown's Christmas in the background. We were watching Charlie Brown, Great Pumpkin, but once you watch one, you got to watch them all. So we're just going to create a bridge here. Hot glue may melt into the foam core a little bit. It's okay. So we'll do another piece here and here, and we'll do that for. We'll do another piece here and here, and we'll do that for this side and this side. So again, we'll do a piece here and here. So we've got 4 sides going on, and we're going to do that for all the pieces. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each one, and in the spaces between these little bridges, I'm going to poke a hole in the foam, and I'm going to kind of widen it a little bit for each one. And I want to make sure, like I said, that it's in between each of the bridges, and there's enough space because we're going to put springs in the center of these here, like this. But what we want to do is we want to have the space in here to thread our line through, because our line is going to create the pull that we need to make our chestburster puppet mechanism move around. So we're going to do this on both sides with each one of these, and try and line it up with the hole that is opposite of it. So this hole here lined up with that hole there, all the way around. For the next step, I'm going to take one of these pieces, now that I have all of them with holes in them, and I'm going to put this little bit of tubing on here. I'm going to, it's just a little piece of cut tubing, and the purpose of this is to raise the this piece away from this piece of cardboard, which I'm also going to glue it to. I'm going to get some on the inside and the outside. Probably move it around a little bit while I'm gluing it, make sure it's nice and cemented in there, glued in there. And then I'm going to glue this onto here. So I've got a little raised piece, might be a little uneven. That's okay. You can do the best you can. And then I am also going to glue this piece onto this piece of cardboard. This piece of cardboard is going to be what we wear on our chest. That's going to keep your chestburster firm against your chest. So I'll just stick that down like that. While we're waiting for that base piece to set up, we're going to attach these springs. And we want to try and get a nice amount of glue on there. We just want to make sure that we don't cover up the holes, and that can happen. You may twist it back and forth to kind of get that glue in the spring nicely. Let's just spread it out between. Okay, hold on a second, sweetie. I'm just spreading the glue out a little bit between the holes as well, just to give it a little more grip. And you can see I don't have it entirely centered. It's easy to kind of lose track of where the spring actually is. You want to get it as centered as possible. So there's one. There's another one. So I've got these two pieces with the springs, and I'm going to start attaching them. This one needs a spring coming out as well. So I think I made one too many segments than I needed. Now this is a little crooked, just happened to glue on that way. So I'm going to make sure that my spring is at least somewhat straight. Alright, like I said, we want to make sure that this sets up straight, so I'm going to have to hold on to that. And then we're going to start stacking them once it's glued down. Okay, so now we have these segments stacked with the springs in between them. You can see it rocks back and forth, and it's attached to this board here, which I will then attach to my chest at some point. I'll show you that later. But you notice that we have a spring here that is not yet attached to a segment. And we could attach another segment and make a really long chest burster, but the more we attach to this, the more weighted down it's going to become. Right now, we've got a little bit of spring here. You notice too, I didn't get it quite even. It tilts to one side, so probably what I'll do is the side that tilts up, or this way, I'll face upwards so that gravity takes it down a little less. But now we are going to take this bit of card here and this ping pong ball and this tiny little spring. Hopefully this works out the way I hope it will. And we are going to make our chestburster's head. Ping pong ball. Very carefully. Not stress how careful you should be when doing this. Poke a hole. And then for safety's sake, cut the rest of it with scissors. I don't know why it is, but when you cut open a ping pong ball, it smells like Vicks Vapor Rub inside. Don't know what that's about. So, we got two halves of the ping pong ball, and this is going to be the dome of the creature's head. Here. You're going to be very careful not to burn yourself. And get a little on the inside. It gets a good grip on it. Little amendment here. I opted to go with a second ping pong ball because the first one was a little too small and I want to be able to have a little hinge to fit around it like that. But I still want to get some teeth on this side. Get the idea. So let's get that hinge on there. I'm gonna put a little hole here. This is going to be where our pull string is to attach to the bottom of the jaw to pull it back. The idea being that the bottom jaw pulls back and the spring inside will pull it back forward to clamp it shut. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure our jaw opens and closes, so we have this little spring here that I pointed out before that has the little loops on it. So, sorry, I can't zoom in more. Don't have a macro lens and this is pretty small, but I'm going to mix up a little more JB quick here. I'm actually going to get a pretty big gob of it for this, but I want to be careful. Get this spring bonded down really well on a nice big gob of this JB Quick. Alright, so we gotta let that set up. We don't want to start messing around with it before it's too dry. The spring JB Quick idea is working wonderfully. So I actually want to repeat that. So I'm going to get it up in the top here, and then I am going to create a hinge out of fishing line here. What I'm going to do to get the top of this in here is I am going to get my pin, I'll poke a hole in the top of the alien's head here. No, let's make 2 holes here. Having a bit of a brainwave. So let's make our jaw hinge. Poke a hole here. Try not to tie it too tight. You want to give it some room to move. I am not the best at knots, so I just triple the knot and then I kind of loop under and give it another knot. Let's get the other side. Got it tied off on both sides. Opens up, but we've still got this spring inside the mouth that's loose. And I want that spring to attach to these 2 holes that I've got up here. So how do we attach it? We're going to take another piece of thread here. This is going to be kind of the tricky part. I'm going to open up that mouth. We're going to thread it through that loop. We're going to get it into these 2 holes up here. Ha, good luck with that. Okay, so now I have it through the top, through both holes, and you can see if I open up the mouth, I can pull that spring all the way to the top and it shuts. Now, how am I going to hold it in place? That calls for more JB Quick. We're going to open up that mouth and we are going to put a big gob of JB Quick right where those 2 little holes are. You want to kind of puddle it up. Now we're going to hold it into place. We're going to tie it off really tight so that spring is, there we go, all the way to the top. We're going to let that set up for a while. But since it's tied off, we can put it off to the side and let it solidify. And you can check underneath, make sure that it's in there. It's kind of hard to see, but it is. So once that JB Quick sets up with that loop solidified inside it, that spring will have enough tension so that when you pull the jaw from underneath, it'll open. When you release, it will shut again. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we have our alien body. Like I said, this is curves this way, so we want to kind of put that against gravity. So we're going to have the head, it's still setting up, we're going to attach it here. So we can move this around. And it can move back and forth. And we're going to get some really cool action out of this now. I'm going to cut a little bit of this fishing line. So, like before, we're going to get a big glob of hot glue. So now we have this kind of silly looking bobblehead fellow. And let's go ahead and cut the excess string off the top of his head. This JB Quick is set up already. And his jaw's got some snap to it now. This ping pong balls, they do get sharp when you cut them, maybe like a paper cut or something. And what we're going to do is we are going to stick yet another hole under his chin here. This one. And we are going to take some fishing line, monofilament line. Hopefully that's enough. Tie it off. Alright, and then we're going to start threading it all the way down all these little holes that we poked before. We're going to thread it through each one of them going down the bottom. Yeah, let's try this out though. Cool. So let's thread it all the way down and see how it works. So now we have it tied all the way down to the bottom. And you can see we can pull it and it moves this. But this isn't really for moving this. What we want is we want this to have tension. So when the jaw comes up, it opens and shuts. So what we're going to do is we're going to lean it forward just a little bit, like that, just so we know how much tension to give it. So you can lean it back and the jaw opens up. Lean it forward and it just has enough tension where the jaw closes. So we want to be able to have it lean back and have the jaw open. So let's let it bend kind of like this, forward about there, and give it that much tension, and we're going to tie it off. It's always a little bit challenging because if you let it go or let it slip at all, you lose some of your tension. Might need to work on adjusting that just a little. But what we want to do now, before we put any other lines on this, we want to think about his arms, which we will do with some wire. Now the reason we want to think about his arms now and not later is that he or it is we're going to glue them on with hot glue, and we don't want hot glue getting on our fishing line. So we're going to attach them to this side. Also be warned, because this is metal, the heat can be conducted from the hot glue down into the metal, so it may get a bit hot. It's not terribly hot, but it's hot enough. We've got the arms in wire, Let's try putting a little gaff tape around those arms. Alright, so now to get this guy actually puppeted. Alright, so for the puppet monofilament lines, we want to go really long. We want to have the length of the body times about 4 or 5 more. Why so long? Because we want to be able to run this down our sleeve when we wear it, so we can pull it and get some nice action. So it's alright to make it too long, because you can always cut it back if you've made it too long, but if you make it too short, you're pretty much done for. Now you notice I did not make any holes in the back here. We're going to tie it off from here, but let's drop it down. So notice that he's kind of bending off to one side. He's bending to what would be my right, your left. So what we need to do is we're going to even that out with a line down this side. This kind of is what helps me figure out which lines to run down which sleeves. So if I take this line and a line down this side together, they'll correct the pull. So let's do this side next. Okay, we got that second line in there, so let's see how it's working so far. You pull back, and pull to the side. And pull them both at the same time. Yeah. Now he's working. Let's tilt it towards the camera, see how it looks when he's actually forward. Kind of hard to hold and operate at the same time. So yeah, we got some puppet motion going on now. Well, let's give it a try. Seems to work pretty good so far. Reminds me of the one that I've seen behind the scenes for Aliens, except this one's foam core and a ping pong ball. Alright, now what we have to do is we've got to put some tubes along the side so these lines can be threaded through properly. Okay, so now that we have the lines, we want to create tubes for the lines to go through. We don't want them too long, we just want them so that they'll kind of come out put the line in a direction that you can put through your sleeve. I've got 2 lines on this side, so I'm going to do 2 tubes, and I've only got 1 on this side. And I didn't want to do a 4th line for the mouth because I wanted that just to make it a little simpler by, again, putting that tension in so the mouth opens up as it leans back. And just glue these down with some hot glue. We want to get them close to where our lines are, but we want to be careful, again, not to accidentally melt our lines with hot glue. Let's get some glue down there like that. This will kind of help us, won't completely stop us from tangling our lines, but it will kind of help narrow some of the confusion of which line goes where. And as an added, I kind of like to draw a little line of hot glue across the top, just kind of anchor them down to the cardboard. Now I'm feeding the lines through, you kind of have to wiggle and push it. pull points. They kind of go up in these tubes here. Crash. He's tired. We're going to start trimming some of this cardboard back because we're actually going to glue this onto another piece of cardboard. Hold on a second. Another little monster. Okay, so the next part hopefully is pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to dress this guy up with trash bag material, kind of the most cheap material that I can find that's flexible and kind of durable. There are probably fabrics you can use. You can use latex and tissue paper, but you can't build it up that much because it loses flexibility really fast. This mechanism is not overly strong. So I'm going to cut into this trash bag. And to the wide shot. So the next thing we need to do is we need to make a harness out of cardboard. Obviously there are a lot better ways to make a harness that are more expensive, but this is a cheap Halloween costume. So I am actually going to kind of wrap this around my body. But first we want to do is we want to curl this cardboard. We want to kind of push our thumb into it, get little divots going, and you can see it's kind of divoting along the corrugation. So the corrugation is, we can see down the corrugation from this side. So we're just going to divot it, kind of roll it, break it up so it's not so rigid. It's still going to have plenty of strength. Alright, so it's a little more flexible. Wrap it around ourselves, and I'm going to just kind of get it around here and get a feel for exactly where it lands, where it overlaps. So it's about there. Luckily, this actually happens to be a mark right here for me. It's just beyond that mark. So kind of about there. I'm a skinny guy. And then we're going to make a couple of holes. So again, just see about where it's going to fit, where it's going to tie in the back, approximate. About right there, right in that penguin. And then we're going to glue down our alien. Anyway, so right about there is where our alien is going to be. So I'm just going to put down some glue. And it's down. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut some string for our harness. And I'll give it a good amount of length. We want room to tie it. Now the reason I like this nylon string is when you cut it, keep it from fraying, you take very dangerous fire. Be very careful with this, and you can melt the ends so they don't fray. Also comes with a lovely smell, and you should probably do this in a ventilated area. Kids, do this with your parents' supervision. Now that I've got this set up, well, how am I going to tie it from the back? There's no one here to help me. Wait, I got this. Come on. Not rocket science. There we go. Alright, so what I want to do is get it from the bottom, poke it through that top one, take the other end, poke it through that bottom one, like that. Okay, because we want these to go out the front so we can tie it. And back around. There we go. And you're starting to see that we're in business. We're back to wide, and the next thing we got to do is we've got to make it look like it's actually coming out of my chest and not just a piece of cardboard and trash bag strapped to my chest. So, I've got this cheap gray t-shirt, and I kind of cut the back a little bit. So I'm going to put this over my shirt. The reason I cut the back is to give me a bit more room to put this on without damaging our guy here. So I kind of estimate that he's going to be coming out, let's see, just below the armpits. So we're going to cut a hole. And this is the nerve-wracking part, one of the nerve-wracking parts, because you don't want to overdo it. So I'm just going to grab some fabric. I'll just try and cut a little higher than I actually think it's going to be. For me, for some reason, that is, I always cut a little lower than I should. There's a hole about that big. Let's see how this works. So it looks a little bulky underneath. And I did cut this a little bigger than I should have. So, what do we do about that? Well, what I'm actually going to do is I'll dress it up around here with maybe some red tissue paper or something like that. Cover that a bit. And got, you know, you can see this kind of sticking out on the sides here and here. It's not the best. You can always trim your tube back a little bit. I'm going to put a jacket over this. I'm going to pull these lines out through the sleeves. And now we got to figure out how short to cut them so we can make rings. Okay, so here's the hard part. After all that work, you got to figure out the length of the string and how much pull you actually want. So you got to figure, pull that much to get reaction. So your arm is that straight, and then you got to take the string back about that far. So I want the string to be about here, and I am going to create little rings with this soft wire. You want to use soft wire because if you're walking around Halloween for a bit, your fingers will start to get dug into by the wire. So you want to create a ring that you can twist around both sides like that. Now you're going to have these bits sticking out, so you want to take your pliers and curl those in as much as possible so they don't poke your fingers. And then you can take either your gaff tape, or for this instance I actually like to use this blue tape because it's not as sticky. I hate getting that sticky gaff tape stuff on my fingers. Stretch this out, wrap it around, and now you've kind of got a little padded section for your fingers as well. In the past I've also coated it in a gob of hot glue. That does the trick as well. So you got a little padded ring now that your finger can pull on. So it looks like I can't quite do it by reaching down. So I can do it by reaching out, so I can go, ah. So I'll get the rest of these strung up and do some paint and some finishing touches and show you the finished result. And so there we have it. I made mine kind of kid-friendly with not so gory blood and tissue paper for where it's coming out of my chest, but I just walk around going, ah, it's... Anybody want to sing Ragtime Gal? Anyway, so here it is. I think I will enter this into the Stan Winston School of Character Arts Costume Contest. And again, this is inspired by the Alien Chestburster build that you can watch on the Stan Winston School of Character Arts YouTube page. If you like my work, if you like this and you want to see more of my tentacle mechanisms and stuff, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, leave a comment, and if you build one, send it to my Facebook page, facebook.com/Christopher Moonlight, and be sure to check out the movie that I'm working on right now, The Quantum Terror. It's written and directed by me. So yeah, glad you enjoyed this tutorial, or I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and happy Halloween!